guys, I'm Kate. Welcome back to my channel, and today I'm talking about freelance life and aspiring author life stuff. Over the past 2.5-ish, 3 counting today days, I've been keeping track of how many hours I spent doing different activities and kind of filming intermittently throughout. And basically I wanted to kind of document what freelance life looked like. But then ultimately, as I was thinking about this, I was thinking more how I could give you like realistic tips if that's something that you are personally interested in. Of course, the freelance work that I do is a mix of writing and editing, and then I'm also an aspiring author. So it's a whole lot of time at the computer. It's a whole lot of writing. And I know that not all freelance life will look like this, but this is what my life looks like. Just to give you a little bit more background on me, for 3 years I did work in a corporate finance job for a Fortune 50 company. So I have some experience with that. I did that right after I graduated university. And then I'm also leaving on an 8-month-long solo road trip. And so that's changing the dynamic of my freelance life a little bit, and I'll talk about that as we go along. So the first tip I have / thing I do is make my bed. It sounds like such a small thing that shouldn't really make a huge difference, but because my desk is in my bedroom and because I work from home, unless I go to a cafe, I'm really in this space all day. And so that space needs to be as conducive to writing as possible, because I can find so many distractions without really moving because I have the internet. So I don't need any more distractions than that. And that is so important for my headspace when I'm working. The other important thing to note for me is that I work best in the mornings. And so I will immediately get out of bed, make my bed, get coffee. So much coffee. It's kind of just nice to have a warm beverage. I drink a lot of water too, so I like to just have something like within arm's reach. It's kind of my way of fiddling, but it's also something to like keep my brain activated, and then I get to freaking work. Some days I start later than others, some days I start earlier. Like this morning I woke up at 6 and I was at my desk at 6:30. And then the previous 2 days I didn't even wake up till after 6:30, so that is one of the many great things about freelance that I will touch on in a little bit with like a pros cons list. Because the past 3 days I haven't been on any specific deadline, I've kind of had a free-for-all for what I wanted to work on first. And so for me, because I'm an aspiring author and because my brain works best in the mornings, I have gotten a chapter out each morning before I did anything work related. If I can manage it, I try and do my personal creative endeavors first, unless of course I'm on a deadline, and then that takes precedence. One caveat to that is if I'm in the middle of edits on something like an article or an essay, I will do that first, because again, my brain works best in the mornings, and so seeing it with fresh eyes first thing in the morning, there's something about that that just works for me. And that's one of the main things about freelance, is that you gotta figure out what works for you. But this morning routine brings me perfectly into an important thing to note for freelance life, and that is scheduling. Scheduling is so important. And part of the reason, if you've watched any of my videos before, you'll see that I have a weekly schedule behind me, and then I have a monthly schedule up above. I also keep a schedule in my notebook that I carry around with me, and then I also have the schedule that is in my phone. If this sounds like a lot of schedules, it is. You totally don't have to do this, but again, I'm going to reiterate, you gotta do what works for you. And for me, I have just awful memory. I always have. It is not one of my strong suits, and so I have to write everything down. And seeing it in multiple places really works for me. It keeps my brain focused, and so that I can see what I need to do that day. Because of course your deadlines will be sometimes weeks ahead of time, and you need to work on it a little bit here and there each day. Sometimes you have to research certain things before you can include it. Sometimes you have to go back and research. Like, you have to be organized. That is one thing. You cannot do freelance without being organized. You are working on your own time. You don't have to punch in. You're not salaried and expected to be at work at a certain time because your boss is. Nothing like that. You are your own boss. And that means you gotta get shit done. If you're someone who likes to have a typical routine and a regular schedule, freelance may be a little bit tougher for you, but that's not to say if it's something that you really want to do that you won't be able to do it. Which leads me back into kind of the pros and cons. It's something I already mentioned, but one big pro for me is working from home, at least as a freelance writer and editor. That's what I do. And that's a pro and con. So let's go ahead and jump into the pros and cons list. Pro, I can stay in my pajamas all day. They are so comfy. It's amazing. I don't have to dress up for work anymore unless I have a meeting, and those are few and far between. It's so nice. The con to this is that I can stay in my pajamas all day. Confession time, I've definitely worn the same pair of pajamas like 3 days in a row because I haven't done anything. I haven't gone out. And so it's just me sitting around the house in my PJs. It's not great. Another pro of freelance life is that because you're not working a typical 9 to 5, you can schedule your doctor's appointments for any time. Getting car maintenance or things like that, that's so easy because the rest of the world is really built around this 9 to 5 thing. And so those doctors and those car maintenance people want to also work the 9 to 5. And so that does make it tough, or it did make it tough for me sometimes living in the city and being like, well, we're all working at the same time, so I have to take time out of work to go to the doctor. But now I get to run errands whenever I want. When no one else is in the store, it is a huge pro. The con is the inverse to that, which is of course that the world is built around 9 to 5. And that means a lot of your family and friends will be working 9 to 5s and will totally not like it when you say you can't do something because you're on a deadline. And you're working on the weekend or you're working in the evenings. Like, that is a tough pill to swallow, especially again when you're working from home. And there's just, it's not that there's a prejudice around it, it's just a lack of understanding that you are also, even in your PJs, really working. And so that can be tough. So I know in my experience what I've decided is that I actually work as soon as I get up in the morning. So on average, I think I probably work from about 7 to 4, 7 to 3, and then a little bit here and there on the weekends. And so that's what works for me. And then of course, if I have those doctor appointments or whatever, I don't have to worry about it. I can just go. And my absolute favorite pro is that because I am working from home, I don't have to deal with traffic almost ever. When I was working my corporate job and I was living in the city, I was spending an hour each day in traffic, and an hour total commute time for the day is surprisingly not that bad in comparison to what a lot of people in the US spend, which is just crazy. And audiobooks were my friend, but I have a whole extra hour, it feels like, for my life and for whatever. So that is just so awesome. And there is no con to that. Traffic sucks. So like I said, the past 3 days, I haven't been on any huge deadlines. And so I have been working pretty hard on my YA pirate fantasy novel, which I am almost done with the revisions for. And I am so freaking excited. And that's really been propelling me forward. And I just, oh, so close, so close. So close. So the last couple days I've been working from about 7-ish to 10-ish on my pirate story, then 10 to 2 on different articles and essays. And today is a little different for me because I've been working a lot on editing all of the articles and the essays and the pirate novel that I just needed a break from it. And I try to actually film videos on the weekends when I don't have anything else to do, but I was busy this weekend with deadlines and it didn't happen. YouTube is definitely one of those things where it's just kind of extra on top of the stuff I do. I really enjoy it, so it's kind of like a hobby at this point, which is really awesome. And I met a lot of people through it, but this also means that it is the first thing that kind of goes by the wayside when deadlines start piling up and I'm really in the midst of revisions and stuff like that. So I try to do 3 videos a week, but like this week, that's just not gonna happen. The other thing I sort of mentioned earlier is that there are days where I just cannot work from home. I am just so tired of seeing this backdrop. I love it, but sometimes you need to get away. So even though I can totally make a pot of coffee at home, it's really helpful sometimes just to like get out, go on a walk, go on a drive, or even actually take all of my stuff and work from a different coffee shop just for like a change in scenery. It really helps my psyche, it really helps my creativity, and that's just something that I know about myself, and I know I've said it like a million times in this video now, but knowing yourself is one of the most important things that a freelancer can do. And I think it's important for anyone to like kind of have that open, honest communication with themselves and check in with how they're feeling, but especially for freelancers because you have to be your own biggest motivator. You gotta be honest about how things are going. Things like how much they're actually working, how much they're willing to take on, and just their mental health. You really have to be in check with yourself. If you need to, and because my memory is terrible, I totally recommend just jotting down at the end of the day how you're feeling about things, and that way you can kind of keep in check, especially as you're starting out on your freelance career, to see if it's really for you. Just keep tabs on things because it can be stressful when you first start out. Because like for me, it was totally a different lifestyle change from my corporate job to this job, and so just gotta keep that in mind. Now from 2 to 4, it's kind of anyone's guess what I'm going to be doing. Sometimes I will be working out because again, I need that kind of thing for my mental health sometimes. Other times I will be revisiting a project or I will continue editing. It's a little bit less structured in the afternoon as my mind kind of starts waning on how it wants that. Ooh. Like right now when it just doesn't want to work. Because words are hard. For me, later in the evening is usually spent with friends or family or like kind of decompressing. I'll watch TV, that's when I'll read my books. kind of whatever. I do try to come back to my desk at least once so that I can jot down my notes for tomorrow so that when I get started in the morning, I'm immediately ready to go. Not everyone needs to do this, but I found it super helpful for me, again with the scheduling, just to kind of always be on tab with what my next portion of the project is going to be. If for some reason I've had enough of a break and my mind is back and ready to go, I will sometimes try and write a chapter of a current work in progress. I'm a very fast first drafter and I kind of fly through it, so sometimes I only need 45 minutes to bang a chapter out. But of course, like right now, I'm not actually doing any of that because I'm in the midst of revisions and that's just taking over my brain. So doesn't always happen, sometimes happens. Again, freelance is kind of up in the air. It is what you make of it and what you want to do with it. And the same I think can be said for aspiring author life and how much work you want to put in each day for your story. Or can put in, because I know when I was personally working the 9-to-5, it ended up being much longer than the standard 9-to-5 corporate job. I was sometimes working on weekends and working later into the evening, and it was just kind of all consuming and taking over my life. So that it's hard. That's hard. So if that's where you're at right now and you're questioning it, just know that I feel you. Also during the day, I will totally take dance breaks. I will listen to podcasts as I clean, like anything. Sometimes I just have to get up from my desk. I try and do that every hour just to get moving because it's so easy to just get stuck and just stay there all day, and that's not good. So going through a 24-hour breakdown, my usual day looks something like this. 1 hour of working out, 4 hours of paid work, 2 hours of work shift, which is things that I am not yet paid for, but that's kind of the direction that I want to take my career going forward. And so I'm putting in the work now in the hopes that I will reap the benefits later. 4 hours for personal projects, i.e. the aspiring author life, 8+ hours of sleep because I super need it, 1 hour of eating / coffee consumption, might be more like 2 depending if I go out with people, and then 4 recreational hours spent with friends, family, watching TV, reading books, etc. The final thing I want to mention about freelance stuff and writing in general is that sometimes the inspiration just hits, and I want to be there for that. If it hits on the weekend, you best believe I'm going to sit my ass down and write for 3 hours. Like, I will get that done. And it's worth noting that other freelancers work on the weekends non-stop. I just know for me personally, I have to have kind of like a mental health break because otherwise I will just go crazy if I non-stop work, which is a danger that I've gotten myself into before. And again, you just gotta keep tabs on yourself. I know that's not okay for me, so I force myself into times where I am not working. I just need some amount of recharging, but again, you do you. All right, I hope that gave you some idea about what freelance life and aspiring author life looks like. If you have any more questions about the more technical side, or if there's anything that I didn't hit on that you're curious about, please comment down below. I would absolutely love to hear about it. And while you are there, please do tell me what your usual day looks like and how you fit writing and reading into it. I am always looking for more ways to get some reading in. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all very soon with a new video. Bye. Again, free life, free life. Oh my gosh.